You're listening to the N2K Space Network.
And now, a word from our sponsor, SpyCloud, the cybercrime analytics leader. SpyCloud disrupts cybercrime by telling you what criminals know about your business and your customers, so you can take action to prevent ransomware, session hijacking, account takeover, and online fraud. SpyCloud constantly recaptures and analyzes new data from the criminal underground, including credentials, session cookies, and PII siphoned from malware-infected devices. With knowledge of the specific exposed data criminals have in hand from InfoStealer malware on managed and unmanaged devices, security teams can respond with a more efficient and effective process called post-infection remediation that fits seamlessly into existing incident response frameworks. Get SpyCloud's post-infection remediation guide outlining the 7 steps for preventing a malware infection from becoming a full-blown ransomware incident. Visit spycloud.com/cyberwire. That's spycloud.com/cyberwire. And we thank SpyCloud for sponsoring our show.
We keep talking on this show about how crazy expensive space missions are, and many of them have such short lifespans after all. So it does make you wonder if the value of each mission is really worth it sometimes. On the other side, there are some missions that defy the odds and continue well over their intended mission duration. Coming to mind are ones like Voyager 1 and 2, the Hubble telescope after a little bumpy road there, and now India's Chandrayaan-3 has made it into that elite list of missions that just keep giving.
T-minus 20 seconds to LOS speed rest. Go for deploy. Roger roll.
Today is December 5th, 2023. I'm Maria Varmazes, and this is T-minus. ISRO transitions the Propulsion Module of Chandrayaan-3 to Earth orbit. Satixfy and Virgin Galactic face market woes. Starship Test 3 gets an FCC license, and note that I said FCC. And our guests today are Iga Stokenberga, a senior economist in the World Bank's Transport Global Practice, and Baptiste Tripart, the chief marketing officer at Altea, on their use of Amazon Web Services to improve data in developing countries. Stay with us for that conversation at the end of the show. On to today's briefing now, and we start with some great news from the mission that had all of us in the industry cheering it on earlier this year. The Indian Space Research Organization, or ISRO, has announced that it has moved the Propulsion Module of Chandrayaan-3 from an orbit around the Moon to an orbit around Earth. Yep, that mission is still ongoing. Just a little bit of a reminder here, the Chandrayaan-3's main mission was a soft landing on the Moon, which was, in case you don't remember, successfully achieved in August of this year. The Vikram lander made its historic touchdown on the lunar surface, and subsequently the Pragyan rover was deployed. The scientific instruments in the lander and rover were operated continuously for 1 lunar day, as per the defined mission life, and sadly went quiet after that. As for the propulsion module that carried the lander, it stayed in lunar orbit, and on board it carried the spectropolarimetry of habitable planet Earth, or SHAPE payload. Bit of a mouthful. The initial plan was to operate this payload for about 3 months during the mission life of the propulsion module, but the Indian Space Agency found that there were over 100 kilos of fuel left over after 1 month of operations in the lunar orbit. So, ISRO decided to use the available fuel in the module to derive additional information for future lunar missions and demonstrate the mission operation strategies for a sample return mission. ISRO decided to reorbit the propulsion module to a suitable Earth orbit so the payload could continue Earth observations. The vehicle began its return in October and entered Earth's orbit in November. The SHAPE payload is being operated whenever Earth is in its field of view, and ISRO says operations will continue further. Chandrayaan-3 really is the mission that keeps on giving. Israeli space company Satixfy is facing financial difficulties. The company has bases in the UK, US, and Bulgaria, and is at risk of being delisted from the New York Stock Exchange because its market cap fell below $50 million. The company says it received written notice from the New York Stock Exchange, or NYSE, stating that the company is not in compliance with the continued listing standards as set forth in the NYSE American Company Guide. And we're going to mostly paraphrase some of the guidelines here, so strap in for this one. In order to maintain its listing, Satixfy must submit a plan of compliance within a 30-day deadline after its receipt of the notice, addressing how it intends to regain compliance with the applicable listing standards by May 30th of 2025. If their plan is accepted, Satixfy may be able to continue its listing and will be subject to periodic reviews by the NYSE. But if their plan is not accepted, or if it is accepted but the company is not in compliance with the continued listing standards by May 30th, 2025, or if the company does not make progress consistent with the plan, the NYSE American will initiate delisting procedures as appropriate. NYSE, nice or not so nice. And another company facing financial uncertainty is Virgin Galactic, after its founder, Richard Branson, announced that he has no plans to invest more money in the company. Branson said Virgin Galactic has, quote, sufficient funds already in stock, but the space tourism company took a 16% tumble after his statement. Virgin Galactic also recently announced layoffs and a reduction in flights for the next year as it focuses on the next generation of spaceplanes. There are exciting headlines, and then there's SpaceX Starship Test 3 getting partly licensed. Okay, we can't get too excited because, as I mentioned at the top of the show, the vehicle has only received its communications permissions from the FCC. They still need other agencies, like the FAA, to sign on for another launch. The license covers a period from December 1st to January 6th, 2024. The issued license covers communications for a launch from SpaceX's Starbase in Texas and includes a first-stage booster, quote, with a soft water landing. The FAA is yet to conclude its investigation into the mishap from Starship's second launch in November. Space-based data, analytics, and space services company Spire Global has been awarded a space services contract by Lacuna Space, a satellite IoT connectivity provider. Under the agreement, Spire will initially build and launch 6 satellites carrying Lacuna Space's payload and antenna, with the opportunity to scale the constellation to dozens of satellites. Lacuna Space will operate its payloads and receive encrypted data at its Harwell headquarters. Spire Global says it will manufacture the 6 satellites at its facility in Glasgow, UK, and no financial details were disclosed. The UK's Science and Technology Secretary Michelle Donnellan has been visiting Brussels to maximize UK involvement in the European Space Agency's Horizon and Copernicus programs. The UK says it has reached a deal with its European partners that will create and support thousands of new jobs as part of the next generation of research talent. UK researchers, academics, and businesses of all sizes can confidently bid for a share of the more than £80 billion available through the 2 programs, with calls for the 2024 work program already open. The UK will also participate in the Copernicus component of the EU space program. This will provide the UK's Earth observation sector with access to data and with the ability to bid for contracts, which we should note they haven't been able to access for 3 years. The Tunisian Space Association, known as TUNSA, has been awarded over €1 million in Horizon Europe space funding from the European Union Agency for the Space Program, or EUSPA, along with European partners. The funding is for the project proposal Eudeni, Copernicus Data for Urban Development in Europe and North Africa. The Udeni project aims to use large amounts of Earth observation data from Copernicus satellites and local sources to support evidence-based decision-making for urban development, especially in international partner countries. To support the UN Sustainable Development Goal 11 of making cities safe, resilient, and sustainable, the project will essentially create a virtual laboratory for urban planners and visionaries to test their development ideas. Multidimensional models of urban areas across time and across countries will be used to support urban planners in exploring natural occurrences of similar development ideas, concepts, or projects in similar urban areas. And we'll be hearing more about a similar project with the World Bank in our interview in the second part of our show today. The European Space Agency has selected Elecnor Demos to lead the Horizon Europe Cassini IOD-IOV IHE-11 CubeSat mission. Cassini IHE-11 mission is part of the Horizon Europe in-orbit demonstration and validation program, known as the IOD-IOV, which aims to advance the European space sector by showcasing cutting-edge technologies in orbit. And Demos will be in charge of overseeing the implementation of the IOD-IOV projects, which includes the delivery of 2 CubeSat missions housing a range of experiments pre-selected by the European Commission. And these CubeSats are scheduled for launch in 2025. And there's another new partnership at the COP28 conference at the United Arab Emirates, which saw the Rwanda Space Agency signing a Memorandum of Understanding with the UAE Space Agency to establish collaboration frameworks in civil space activities. The two nations aim to foster research and development and space technologies, to share geospatial data, and to initiate joint space sector projects. And that concludes our roundup of the headlines for today. We've included links to further reading on all the stories that we've mentioned, and we've included a few extra for you. The first is on drug companies looking to space. Another's an interview with Boeing CEO on getting astronauts on Starliner. And a third is on oxygen in space. All these stories and more can be found at space.n2k.com and click on this episode title. Hey T-Minus crew, if you're just joining us, be sure to follow T-Minus Space Daily in your favorite podcast app. And also, if you could do us a favor, share this show with your friends and coworkers. So here's a little challenge for you. By Friday, please share T-Minus Space Daily with 3 friends or coworkers. That's because a growing audience is the most important thing for us, and we would really love your help as part of the T-Minus crew. So, if you find T-Minus useful, and of course we really hope you do, please share it so other professionals like you can find the show. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me and to all of us here at T-Minus.
And now a word from our sponsor, 6 Sense. 6 Sense provides award-winning cloud-based automated endpoint and vulnerability management solutions to streamline IT and security operations. With its advanced platform, businesses gain complete visibility and control over their infrastructure, reducing IT and security risks and optimizing operational efficiency. With 6 Sense, you'll get real-time alerts, risk-based vulnerability prioritization and remediations, and an intuitive automation and orchestration engine so you can focus on your core business goals, confident in the knowledge that your enterprise is secure, compliant, and running smoothly. Visit 6sense.com to learn why enterprises choose them.
Our guests on the show today are Aiga Stokenberga, who is a senior economist in the World Bank's Transport Global Practice, and Baptiste Tripart, the chief marketing officer at Altea. Now, this is a short clip of our chat, and it's part of our AWS in Orbit series. In it, we explore how Altea and the World Bank are using AWS cloud, AI, and space capabilities all together to monitor critical road networks at scale to support large-scale infrastructure investments. From road networks to bridges, they share real-world applications that are making a difference in emerging economies. Baptiste Tripart is the Chief Marketing Officer at Altea. Aiga Stogenberga is the Senior Transport Economist at the World Bank. We explore how Altea and the World Bank are leveraging AWS's cloud, AI, and space capabilities to monitor critical road networks at scale to support large-scale infrastructure investments. From road networks to bridges, they share real-world applications that are making a difference in emerging economies.
My name is Aiga Stogenberg. I'm a senior transport economist at the World Bank. I work on the Latin America region currently, but also support the global transport team on various knowledge products.
Aiga, why don't we start with the problem that the World Bank was working on and trying to solve, if you could set the stage for us there.
Sure. I mean, so there's kind of the big picture problems we try to solve, which is reducing poverty and increasing shared prosperity. And now we have expanded our mission to also add on a livable planet. So the climate aspects are becoming much more central in everything we do in terms of both resilience, which is much more relevant for many of the poorest countries we work on, and then in terms of decarbonization. And transport is one of the main contributors to carbon emissions in many countries, and especially in Latin America, which is a very urbanized region. Transport is one of the main contributors, and so everything we work on has to be kind of through this climate lens, if you will. And so, I mean, the World Bank works on two main kinds of types of work. One is investment lending, which is the bulk of what we do, and infrastructure accounts for about a quarter of all of our lending. So both transport, but also energy and digital development. And so that means basically helping governments prepare projects, finance those projects, help implement them. This can range in transport. It can range from rural roads, interurban roads, ports, mass transit in cities, etc. And then the other type of work we do is really sort of like the knowledge creation and analytics. And so the problem that we face is usually in investment lending projects, it's the lack of data at the scale of a country that would allow us to advise the government in how to even prioritize those investments. Later on in project preparation, there's much more money going into actually collecting data, but at the stage of sort of just what do we even need to do to achieve the mission of reducing poverty and increasing shared prosperity on a livable planet? Like, we really lack the data at the scale of a country on the quantity and the quality of the infrastructure assets that the country has.
Thank you for setting the stage there. So now we have a good understanding of what the problem is that we're trying to solve. So it feels like a good time to bring in our second speaker, Baptiste, on how to go about doing that. Baptiste, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Baptiste Tripart, and I work at Altea as a CMO, Chief Marketing Officer. And my background is in aerospace engineering, so everything related to aircraft design. That led me to design drones back in the 2010s, and now working in the field of software development and artificial intelligence.
Thanks, Baptiste. So to start off, perhaps could you give us a bit of context on how you learned how aerial imagery could really change how people do business?
Back to the 2010s, I got involved in what's called kind of spatial computing now. As I said, when I started building commercial drones for different types of applications. And the idea was back then to start using small unmanned devices equipped with consumer cameras to take high-resolution pictures from the sky. And it used to be, and it still is, highly valuable for many different types of applications ranging from agriculture to construction, but also, as you mentioned, some conservation projects. One of the highlights of that time was to do a mission in Antarctica to take aerial images from penguin populations and understand from the sky how climate change had an impact on the way they all behave together and where they're going. And, like, I think it's kind of like fundamental for the topic we're discussing today. At that time, it really opened our eyes, understand like the value of remote sensing for anybody really, from archaeologists, conservationists to larger organizations like the World Bank. So what changed from 2010 to now is all the developments that happen, in the field of geospatial and cloud technology. And what used to be available at the very narrow scale with the drone business is now, available at a much larger scale, almost in near real time. You just click on a button on the AWS Open Data Registry and you access like infinite amount of satellite imagery. And so you have kind of like that technology breakthrough, public initiatives like the Copernicus project in Europe to map with satellites, the entire Earth I think it's every week, or even like private initiatives funded by investment companies and fueled by private organizations like Planet or Satellogic that now launch in the sky satellites that are the size of a shoebox. So all of that kind of like connects to a point where data is much more available in near real time and can be processed very easily thanks to the AWS infrastructure.
So you were speaking a bit about AWS, and I wanted to ask a bit about how AI also comes into the picture here and how Altea uses both AWS and AI.
Well, so and I'll start with that, and Aiga highlighted it as well. Data or access to data is paving the way for what I would call a smarter and more sustainable future, right? So we have that very beautiful synergy between technology and the planet, but the problem is, there is an ocean of data out there. And this is really hard to transform that data into information, something that has a value for an organization. And because we have so much data available, it's not possible, or at least really difficult, both from an operational but also, a financial standpoint, to not automate some of those processes. And that's where I think the combination of artificial intelligence and cloud computing comes into play. AI is not a new technology. I mean, it was available already in the 70s. However, it consumes a lot of computing power, and it's really that combination that makes it so powerful today. And this is where Altea is standing. What we do is we allow organizations to produce real-time information from that ocean of data that is out there, leveraging both AI models and cloud technology.
Excellent. Okay, I'm going to switch to Aiga now. So we've been speaking a bit at length about Baptiste and Altea's solution. So I'd love to know how the World Bank, kind of how you met, essentially, and how you realized that there was a solution here that you both could work on.
In our case, there was a very specific ask from our clients. So there's sort of like a cascade of working together, us being Altea's clients, and then obviously the World Bank responds to governments. And in the case of Peru, which is one of the countries I work on, we're being asked to prepare essentially the next generation of rural roads projects or programs. Peru has a long history of very successful rural roads investment programs that have had really significant impacts on rural poverty reduction, et cetera. But they're looking for season of roads projects that would be at an even bigger scale and that would have more robust prioritization criteria built in. And so this is sort of where the World Bank comes in, because we don't just come with money. We're supposed to come with increasingly more knowledge, analytics. And for that, we really needed this at-scale information on where are the roads and what are what's their conditions to be able to advise the government. At the same time, I was working in Mexico, which is, another country where we lack that kind of data. And even though we don't have a project right now, the government is looking for technical assistance in helping to design an asset recycling strategy. So it's essentially advising how to use the road assets that the government manages at different levels. So it can be the federal or the state governments to generate revenues from those assets. I'm sure you're familiar with toll roads, but this is just one way that this could be done. But obviously, for that to happen, you need to know what assets you're managing, and even a country the level of sophistication and income of Mexico honestly doesn't have that information at the scale needed. And so we were basically looking for various solutions that we could think of, and the World Bank, my engineer colleagues are very familiar with kind of the traditional ways of surveying road assets. You literally drive with a car with a GoPro camera and another type of camera, and you record the roads. And as you can imagine, this would take about a century if you're trying to cover the road network of Mexico or Peru. And so basically, we started looking around to try to find a solution that is leveraging satellite imagery, but doesn't cost, what I've seen these kinds of projects cost in other regions where I've worked, where if you're thinking of leveraging high resolution imagery, this can easily spiral out of control in terms of, the cost. And we were trying to find a solution that, we could apply not only in Peru and Mexico, but also potentially sort of develop a blueprint that can, the methodological blueprint that could serve other countries' needs as well, and could be potentially scaled to even, the world, all the clients where we work in. So I had some support from the global transport team in the World Bank, which is more sort of the knowledge generation hub, and typically supports these sort of like global knowledge initiatives, and basically created a coalition of people who were really looking for the solution, and we were able to we were connected with Altea through the chief economist's office at the World Bank, who had also been thinking about this topic more from the analytical and knowledge creation perspective, because they are always looking for great data and comparable data across countries to be able to do statistical analyses, how transport connectivity affect incomes or poverty, etc. And so it was kind of this lucky confluence of needs, and in the end, we were able to develop something that worked. But in the beginning, I wouldn't say that we were buying a solution that was ready. We were sort of ready to work on the solution with Altea, knowing what they had in mind. It sounded very promising. And I think that's what happened. It was sort of working together on the solution for a couple of months.
Be sure to join us for our AWS in Orbit third episode, airing on Saturday, to hear the conversation with Aiga and Baptiste in full. We'll be right back.
Now, a word from our sponsor, the Johns Hopkins University Information Security Institute, currently seeking qualified applicants for its innovative Master of Science in Security Informatics degree program. study alongside world-class interdisciplinary experts, and gain unparalleled educational, research, and professional experience in information security and assurance. Interested U.S. citizens should consider the National Science Foundation's CyberCorps Scholarship for Service program, which covers tuition and a $6,000 annual professional development allowance, as well as providing a $37,000 additional annual stipend. Apply for the scholarship and the fall semester by March 1st. Learn more at cs.jhu.edu/MSSI.
Welcome back. Space domain awareness, so hot right now, and we're all here for it. So, how do we clean up all that space junk that we have whizzing around the Earth? Well, many a smart folk has figured out how to capture and remove large debris, but it's those tricky, tiny micro pieces that have the industry scratching its heads. But it seems that maybe we're on the precipice of a breakthrough on that conundrum. And that's because a new group led by the University of Michigan believes that they have made a breakthrough in methods for tracking micropieces, and those would be the ones that are smaller than 10 centimeters across, by spotting electrical pulses created when they crash into each other. The team believes that some radio antennae, like NASA's Deep Space Network system, could be sensitive enough to measure the signals produced by small items colliding. The researchers are still figuring out the characteristics of these signals by simulating different impact scenarios in computer models. They eventually want to perform real experiments and incite collisions between bits of space junk, of different sizes and speeds. The team will be sharing their research at the second International Orbital Debris Conference, which is currently being held in Texas this week. With purportedly over 100 million objects larger than a millimeter in size currently orbiting around our planet, and less than 1% of the debris capable of damaging spacecraft actively being monitored, there is a heck of a gap there, and we can only hope and pray that this method works, that they start figuring out how to clean up the space junk, and soon. That's it for T-Minus for December 5th, 2023. For additional resources from today's report, check out our show notes at space.n2k.com. We're privileged that N2K and podcasts like T-Minus are part of the daily routine of many of the most influential leaders and operators in the public and private sector, from the Fortune 500 to many of the world's preeminent intelligence and law enforcement agencies. This episode was produced by Alice Carruth. Mixing by Elliot Peltzman and Trey Hester, with original music and sound design by Elliot Peltzman. Our executive producer is Jen Iben. Our VP is Brandon Karp. And I'm Maria Varmazes. Thanks for listening. We'll see you tomorrow.
T-minus.